Now we're going to see how to use the Modyo API from an external service. So for this, we need a user with a specific role because the Modyo API has multiple functions and we only want to give specific permissions to that role. And so we want to know how we can send notifications, really. So it's important that we create this role with adequate enough permissions in order to just send notifications. So in this case, we just send notifications through the API, and we created our user already in people. And so here you can see we created a user called Lambda, and here's where we can utilize this user so that we can make API requests from our Lambda application. We can see that this user has access to all of our channels in this account with the role called notifications. In addition to this, we need to configure an API access, which we can do from our account in settings, API access. We make a new client. We can give it the name Lambda. Here, we can use this URL in this case, since it's just a test. And for the redirection, we can just use the URL example.com here for the logout. Let's save it here. So with this now, we've created we can create an access token for our user in the people index here, also called Lambda. So go to API access, new access token, select our application Lambda, then click create token. With this token, we can now make requests through the Modyo API. Now, what are we going to use the Modyo API for? It's just to set up notifications from our Lambda function outside of the platform. We've created our Lambda function previously that is going to use notification methods in the API that we can see here in the API documentation. And basically, we just have to make a post in API v1 messaging notifications with a body in a JSON, including a username and a body for the actual message and a subject. This username will correspond to what we use in the context of our authorizer, just as we saw in the previous module that we completed. So let's go to the API gateway, and here we have a method called payments. We are going to use our authorizer. Therefore, we have the context within our authorizer for integration, and here we have Lambda. So let's go to templates, and let's see what we mapped, such as the principal ID of the authorizer. We're going to use this principal ID as a username at the moment that we send a notification. So we take out our Lambda function that we built, a message that we received in the context principal ID. We map the username. We put a message. You have made a payment as an example of maybe what we want to simulate, making a payment. And in the rest of our parameters of our requests, we have our host URL. In this case, we're using a proxy that's using our API through the internet. So basically, the Lambda function will make a request to Modyo where we have our notification endpoints, just as we saw in the documentation, such as the post method with our content type application/JSON, our data length, and an important piece that we've seen before, our bearer access token that we're generating here in Modyo. Okay, so here we can copy our access token, and here we can map a variable with our Lambda function and add our access function. And finally here, we can execute this request within our promise. So let's save our function and then publish it. Now again, let's return to Modyo, where we created our channel. and go to our widget. In this case, it's our credit card widget. And we've gone ahead and added a button to make a payment. So now let's open a tab in incognito mode so we can interact with this widget. Okay, so when we try to access our credit card's layout, we need to log in with some new user credentials, Maria Oxford. And oh, whoops, let's remove the I here. And now we can see we have loaded our widget and retrieved our user data. And this make a payment button here will send a request to our API gateway with the user context for what's the notification that we need to send. In this case, assuming that a payment has gone through correctly. So now let's check and see what happens when we click on our button, Make a Payment. We can see that our request executes, and we can see a successful response in the headers. We're sending our JSON web token, and this causes a request to be made to the Modyo API, generating a notification for our user. So let's review this now by going into our account profile. All right, we have a new notification here that if we click the tab, this now tells us that we have successfully made a payment and integrated the Modyo API with an external service.